March 6 may feel like an eternity away, but that hasn't stopped fans of Captain Marvel from getting really hyped about the character's cinematic debut. For those of you who don't know much about the Captain Marvel mantle or the 7 characters who have held it, we're taking a closer look at the character's history, and filling you in on why the hero has such an iconic presence in the Marvel Universe to date. For starters, let's examine how Captain Marvel came into existence. Created by Stan Lee and Gene Golan in 1967, the first iteration of the character was a Kree military officer by the name of Mar-Vell, who first appeared in Marvel's Superheroes issue 12. Prior to this, the name Captain Marvel belonged to another superhero, one owned by Fawcett Comics, who you all know now as Shazam. DC had first sued Fawcett for the character's similarities to Superman, and Fawcett was forced to stop publishing Captain Marvel. Now in the late 60s, Marvel would gain the trademark to that name, and in order to retain the trademark, they had to publish a Captain Marvel title once every 2 years, which is why the characters had so many limited series, one-shots, and ongoing series, despite sometimes being fairly unsuccessful. Back to the character though. Mar-Vell was sent to Earth to examine the planet since humans were developing technology to travel into space. He decides to align himself with Earth after growing tired of his superior officers' intents for the planet, and he's branded a traitor of the Kree Empire. The character would be revamped twice down the road, the first by Roy Thomas and Gil Kane, who exiled Mar-Vell to the Negative Zone, where he could only temporarily escape by exchanging atoms with Rick Jones via special wristbands called Negabands. The second time was by Jim Starlin, who revamped him when the character's titles were wavering in sales. He freed Mar-Vell from the Negative Zone and made him the protector of the universe, a cosmic champion appointed by Entity Eon, working with Rick Jones to fight evil, including the likes of Thanos. In the 80s, Mar-Vell discovered that his previous exposure to Compound 13 nerve gas during a battle with Nitro had given him cancer. His Negabands kept it at bay, but also caused him to resist any sort of treatment. Unable to get medical help from the Kree Empire because he was considered a traitor, he accepts his inevitable death. And in Marvel's first ever graphic novel in 1982, The Death of Captain Marvel, the character meets his end after his allies and even some of his foes pay their respects to him. When he dies, Thanos appears and guides him to the afterlife along with Mistress Death. The mantle wasn't left empty long after that. The next Captain Marvel to arise was Monica Rambeau. Monica was born in New Orleans, where she was a lieutenant at the New Orleans Harbor Patrol. She was endowed with the Captain Marvel powers when trying to prevent the creation of a weapon that left her exposed to extra-dimensional energy, which gave her the ability to convert her body to energy. This allowed her to travel at the speed of light, convert her body into any form of energy within the electromagnetic spectrum, and to travel through the vacuum of space. She joined the Avengers and was briefly their leader, beginning with Avengers issue 279 in 1987. She would retire from the team, later taking on the name Photon after the Captain Marvel title went to Mar-Vell's son, Genis-Vell, which she resented him for. Speaking of, Genis-Vell first hit the scene in Silver Surfer Annual Issue 6 in 1993, but at the time used the codename Legacy. He was the genetically engineered son of Mar-Vell, created from his father's cell samples, who was artificially aged to physical maturity. Similar to his father, he wore Negabands and bonded with Rick Jones, who, despite disliking at first, he became close friends with. Then Genis went insane because he couldn't manage his cosmic awareness. He threatened the universe, destroyed it, put it back together, and then eventually died and resurrected himself with the help of Baron Zemo, who siphoned energy from the beginnings and ends of time to do so. Then Genis gets into another name debacle with Monica because he wanted to use the codename Photon after he joined the Thunderbolts. They talk, she gives it up to him yet again, going with Pulsar for herself, and she also still resented him. But despite all these things looking up in his direction, his resurrection complicated things, because it started to degenerate the universe. Because, you know, linked to the ends and beginnings of time, probably not the best idea. This results in Zemo freezing him in a moment in time, then pulls apart his body, scatters it all across the universe in order to prevent it from destroying all existence, and the character has pretty much never been seen again. Keeping it in the family, next up was Phyla-Vell, Genis' younger sister. She was created by Genis when he recreated the universe after he went insane and destroyed it and then rebuilt it. And she was one of the few alterations he made when he put it back together. She's most well known for being part of the Annihilation event, and for her romantic relationship with Moondragon. She would eventually ditch the Captain Marvel title, taking up the Kesar mantle, and becoming martyr prior to dying when saving her Guardians of the Galaxy teammates. After Phyla-Vell, there was Kanar, a Skrull sleeper agent who posed as Mar-Vell after he bonded with the hero's DNA. Mar-Vell's persona became dominant over his, and his mental conditioning was erased. As of now, he's still considered to be dead. Then there was the 6th Captain Marvel, Noh-Varr, who joined Dark Avengers during the Dark Reign storyline, but eventually would operate under the mantle of Protector. If it isn't overly obvious by now, none of the successors to Mar-Vell were overly popular, that is, until the 7th Captain Marvel was announced, who was a character who was already rooted in the lore of the hero. Carol Danvers. Carol may be the most recent Captain Marvel, but she has a long history with the mantle, having first appeared in Marvel's Superheroes 13 in 1968. She was an officer in the US Air Force and the security chief of a restricted military base, which is where she met Mar-Vell's human alias, Dr. Walter Lawson. She then accidentally gets into an explosion caused by a Kree device when trying to get near him. She disappeared for a while after that, but then resurfaced in 1977, where we find out that that explosion caused her genetic structure to meld with Captain Marvel's, making her a hybrid human Kree, and giving her his powers, causing her to become Miss Marvel. Marvel. The character would often work alongside the Avengers, and her civilian persona would consistently be in storylines where she vocalized the importance of fighting for equal pay for equal work. But those feminist themes were shot to the wind in the 80s, specifically in Avengers number 200 when Carol had a bit of a rough period after she was infamously kidnapped by Marcus Immortus and brought to another dimension. She was brainwashed, seduced, and impregnated, a storyline that critics have noted as being rape. The Avengers at the time brushed it off as her being in love. Chris Claremont, who had written Carol in the past, called the storyline inappropriate, and then would go on to take the helm for the title and make a point of undoing the storyline, when Rogue in Avengers Annual number 10 in 1981 permanently absorbed her memories. This would lead Charles Xavier to restore them for her. Upon getting them back, Carol remembers, and is furious at the Avengers for letting Marcus get away with brainwashing her and doing what he did to her. She would then go on to delete all government files in the Pentagon on the X-Men and on herself, which is seen as her symbolically breaking away from her life as Miss Marvel. The character would then take up a new mantle in the form of Binary, in which she was capable of generating the power of a star. In the 90s, she would still be Binary, but by the end of the Operation Galactic Storm storyline, her powers reverted back to her Miss Marvel ones, and she would rejoin the Avengers. In the 2000s, she would become Miss Marvel again, and she was featured in many of the massive story arcs between then and 2012, which is when she would officially become Captain Marvel, since she has been considered to be Marvel's biggest female hero, and now, in her upcoming MCU debut, has been said to be the most powerful superhero to exist in that universe to date, while also being the very first female superhero in the Marvel MCU to get her own solo feature film. Alright, there we have it, friends. Who's your favorite version? Do you wish some of the other Captain Marvels stuck around longer? Or do you think that none of them were really that great? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Now make sure you hit that like button before you go, subscribe if you want to hang out with us some more, and don't forget to check out that playlist we have up on your screen for more nerdy goodness. In the meantime, thanks for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one.